Princess Vela had never known what it felt like to be thrown on the ground like garbage. She was the only daughter of Emperor Korin IX, ruler of 12 star systems and commander of the greatest fleet in the galaxy. Her skin was the color of pale silver, and her eyes glowed soft violet like twin moons. From the day she was born, servants had bowed before her. Soldiers had died for her. Entire planets had celebrated her name. But none of that mattered now. The Drek Syndicate soldiers laughed as they dragged her through the dark corridors of the prison station. They did not care that she was royalty. They did not care that her father could burn their worlds to ash. Out here, on the edge of known space, she was just another prisoner. They threw her into a cell. The metal door slammed shut behind her with a sound that echoed in her bones. Vela lay on the cold floor for a long time. Her beautiful robes were torn. Her silver blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. She had never felt so alone in her entire life. Then she heard a voice. "You should sit up. The floor gets colder at night." Vela lifted her head. In the corner of the cell, hidden in shadow, sat a creature she had only heard about in stories. It had soft brown skin, dark hair, and eyes the color of rich earth. It was smaller than most species she knew, with no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons of any kind. "A human. What are you?" she asked, her voice rough. "My name is Tejo," the creature said. He spoke slowly, carefully, like someone who was used to not being understood. "I am a human. From a planet called Earth." Vela had heard of Earth. A small blue world on the far edge of the galaxy. The humans who lived there were considered weak by most species. They had no special abilities. They could not breathe in space or survive extreme temperatures. They were soft and fragile and died easily. Yet here one was, alive, in a syndicate prison cell. "How long have you been here?" Vela asked. 3 months, Tejo said. "Maybe 4. It is hard to keep track." 3 months. Vela felt sick. Surely her father would rescue her before 3 months passed. Surely he would send his entire fleet to save his only daughter. She pushed herself up and leaned against the wall. Her body ached everywhere. Tejo watched her with those strange, dark eyes. Then he stood up slowly and walked toward her. Vela tensed, ready to fight even though she had no strength left. But the human did not attack her. Instead, he knelt beside her and looked at the wound on her forehead. "This needs to be cleaned," he said. "May I?" Vela stared at him. No one had ever asked her permission for anything. People simply did what she commanded, or they did not do it at all. "Why would you help me?" she asked. Tejo shrugged. It was a strange gesture, a lifting of the shoulders that seemed to mean many things at once. "You are hurt. I used to be a medic. A healer. It is what I do." He did not wait for her answer. He tore a strip of cloth from his own shirt and wet it with water from a small container in the corner. Then, very gently, he cleaned the blood from her face. His hands were warm. That surprised her. She had expected a human to feel cold, like the weak creatures they were supposed to be. "You are a princess," Tejo said as he worked. "I saw the symbols on your clothes. You are from the Korin Empire." "Yes," Vela said. "My father will come for me. He will destroy this place and everyone in it." Tejo said nothing, but something in his eyes told her that he did not believe this would happen. Days passed. Then weeks. No rescue came. The syndicate guards came to the cell often. Sometimes they brought food, a gray paste that tasted like nothing. Sometimes they came to take prisoners for questioning, and sometimes they came simply to hurt people, because they were cruel and there was no one to stop them. When they beat Vela for refusing to answer their questions, Tejo was always there afterward. He would clean her wounds with torn cloth and stolen water. He would tell her stories about Earth to distract her from the pain. Stories about blue oceans and green forests and cities that touched the sky. "Why do you keep helping me?" Vela asked one night. Her ribs were bruised, and every breath hurt. "I am nothing to you. Your people have no part in our wars." "You are not nothing," Tejo said simply. "You are a person who is hurt. That is enough reason to help." Vela did not understand this. In her world, everything had a reason. Everything had a price. People helped each other because of politics, because of money, because of power. No one helped simply because it was kind. But Tejo did. Every day. Without asking for anything in return. Slowly, something changed inside Vela. She began to look forward to their conversations. Tejo taught her card games from Earth, using pieces of torn paper as cards. She taught him the old songs of her people, ancient melodies that had been passed down for thousands of years. He had a terrible singing voice, but he tried anyway, and sometimes she almost smiled. One day, the guards came with a message. They had sent word to the Koran Empire, demanding ransom for the princess. They expected riches beyond imagination. The emperor's response arrived 3 days later. It was a single word, no. Vela read the message over and over. Her hands shook. Her father, the man who was supposed to love her more than anything, had refused to pay for her freedom. She was not worth the cost. She was just another piece in his political games, and he had decided to sacrifice her. That night, for the first time in her adult life, Princess Vela cried. She tried to hide it. She turned her face to the wall and pressed her hand over her mouth. But her shoulders shook, and the sounds escaped, despite her best efforts. Tejo did not say anything. He simply sat beside her and put his hand on her shoulder. He did not tell her that everything would be okay. He did not lie to her. He just stayed there, warm and solid and real, while she wept. "I will remember this," Vela whispered, when her tears finally stopped. "When I am free, when I have power again, I will remember that a human showed me kindness when my own blood abandoned me." Tejo smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. "Just survive, princess. That is all I ask. Just survive." Vela looked at this strange, soft, fragile creature who had shown her more loyalty than her own empire. And she made a silent promise in her heart. If she ever escaped this place, she would find a way to repay him, no matter what it cost. No matter how long it took, she would not forget. 6 months had passed since Vela was thrown into the cell. 6 months of gray walls, gray food, and the constant fear that each day might be her last. But she was still alive. And she was still not alone. Tejo had changed during their time together. He was thinner now, his face marked with new scars from the guards' beatings. But his eyes remained the same, calm and watchful, always thinking, always planning. Vela had learned that humans were not as simple as the galaxy believed. They were not strong or fast or powerful. But they had something else, something harder to see. They had patience. They had hope, and they never, ever stopped trying to survive. "I have been watching the guards," Tejo said one night, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every day for 6 months. I know when they change shifts. I know which ones are lazy. I know which doors are weak." Vela sat up straighter. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that I have a plan." Tejo's dark eyes met hers. "I know a way out of this place." Hope was a dangerous thing. Vela had learned to push it down, to bury it deep where it could not hurt her. But now it rose in her chest like a fire she could not control. "Tell me," she said. Tejo explained everything. He had made friends with one of the cooks, an old alien who hated the syndicate as much as they did. The cook had stolen a keycard from a sleeping guard. It would only open a few doors, but those doors led to the maintenance tunnels. The tunnels led to the shuttle bay. "There is a small transport ship in Bay 4, Tejo said. "It is old and slow, but it works. If we can reach it, we can escape." "And then what?" Vela asked. "Where do we go?" "Your people have listening posts throughout this sector. I memorized the emergency frequency. 772. If you broadcast on that frequency, they will hear you. They will come." Vela noticed something in the way he spoke. He said, "You, and not we." "You are coming with me," she said. It was not a question. Tejo hesitated. "The plan is dangerous. There are many guards between here and the shuttle bay. If something goes wrong, Someone will need to stay behind. To create a distraction. No. Vela grabbed his arm. I will not leave you here. We escape together, or not at all. Tejo looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Together. He agreed, but something in his eyes told her that he was lying. They waited 3 more days for the perfect moment. A supply ship was arriving, which meant extra noise and confusion. Half the guards would be in the loading bay, checking cargo. The other half would be tired from double shifts. When the time came, Tejo woke Vela with a gentle touch on her shoulder. Now, he whispered. The keycard worked perfectly. The first door slid open without a sound. They crept into the corridor, staying low, moving fast. Vela's heart pounded so hard she was sure the guards could hear it. They reached the maintenance tunnels without being seen. The tunnels were dark and filled with pipes and wires, but Tejo seemed to know exactly where to go. He had memorized the entire layout of the station. How did you learn all of this? Vela asked, as they crawled through a narrow passage. I watched, Tejo said. I listened. I paid attention to things that other people ignored. Humans are good at that. We are good at surviving. They emerged near the shuttle bay. Through a small window, Vela could see the transport ship Tejo had described. It was ugly and old. But it was their freedom. There was only one problem. 4 guards stood between them and the ship. I will distract them, Tejo said. You run for the ship. No. Vela shook her head. We fight together. You do not understand. Tejo's voice was gentle but firm. If we both try to fight, we will both die. But if I distract them, you can reach the ship. You can escape. You can live. And what about you? Tejo did not answer. He did not need to. I will not let you sacrifice yourself for me, Vela said. Her voice cracked. You are the only friend I have. The only person who has ever been kind to me without wanting something in return. That is why I have to do this. Tejo took her hands in his. His skin was warm, as always. You are a princess. You have the power to change things. To make the galaxy better. I am just one human. My life is small. Yours is not. Your life is not small, Vela whispered. Not to me. For a moment, something passed between them. Something that words could not describe. Then the alarms began to scream. Red lights flashed everywhere. Doors began to close automatically. Someone had discovered that they were missing. Go! Tejo shouted. He pushed Vela toward the shuttle bay door. Run! Now! He did not wait for her to respond. He sprinted in the opposite direction, waving his arms and shouting to draw the guards' attention. Hey! Over here. Come and catch me. The guards turned. They saw the human running, and immediately gave chase. They did not even notice the silver-skinned figure slipping through the shuttle bay door. Vela ran. Her lungs burned and her legs ached, but she did not stop. She reached the transport ship and climbed inside. Her fingers flew over the controls. She had never flown a ship like this before. But desperation was a powerful teacher. The engine roared to life. The ship lifted off the ground. Through the window, Vela saw Tejo. He had stopped running. 3 guards surrounded him, their weapons pointed at his chest. Blood ran down his shoulder from a plasma burn, but he was smiling. He looked up at the ship, at her, and he raised one hand in a small wave. The shuttle bay doors began to close. Vela screamed. She tried to turn the ship around, to go back for him. But it was too late. The doors sealed shut, and the ship shot forward into space. She was free, and Tejo was gone. Hours later, a Koran warship intercepted her distress call. Soldiers rushed onto the transport ship and found their princess crying on the floor. Take me back, she begged. Please. We have to go back for him. For whom, Your Highness? The Admiral asked. The human. He saved my life. We cannot leave him there. The Admiral's face was cold and hard. We cannot risk Koran ships for one alien. The Syndicate has reinforced their defenses. It would be suicide. I do not care about the risk. He is my friend. But the admiral simply bowed and walked away. The ship turned toward home, leaving the prison station far behind. Vela was taken to her chambers on the warship, the door locked behind her. She screamed until her voice broke. She beat her fists against the walls until her knuckles bled silver. She cursed her father, her empire, and every cold law that valued politics over people. But nothing changed. Tejo was still gone, and she had left him behind. That night, alone in the dark, Vela made another promise. Not a silent promise this time, but one spoken aloud, with all the strength she had left. "I will come back for you," she whispered. "I do not care how long it takes. I do not care what I have to become. I will find you, Tejo, and I will bring you home." The stars outside her window did not answer. But somewhere, in a cell on a distant station, a human with warm hands and a tired smile was still alive, still waiting, still hoping. 3 years changed everything. The princess who returned from captivity was not the same girl who had been captured. That girl had been soft, sheltered, and blind to the cruelty of the universe. The woman who now walked the halls of the imperial palace was something else entirely. Vela had trained every day since her return. She learned to fight with blades and plasma rifles. She studied military strategy until she could recite famous battles in her sleep. She ran through the palace gardens at dawn and practiced combat drills until her muscles screamed for mercy. The servants whispered about her. The nobles stared. Her father watched with cold, calculating eyes. "You are different," Emperor Korin IX said one evening, studying his daughter across the dinner table. "Harder. Colder. I learned that the universe is hard and cold," Vela replied. "I am simply adapting." She did not tell him the real reason. She did not tell anyone about the human who haunted her dreams, about the warm hands that had healed her wounds, about the tired smile that she saw every time she closed her eyes. Every week, she sent requests to the Imperial Intelligence Service. "Find me information about human prisoners in Syndicate space. Find me records of labor camps. Find me anything." Every week, the answers were the same. No records, no survivors, no hope. But Vela did not give up. Humans had taught her that. They had taught her that hope was not about expecting good things to happen. Hope was about refusing to stop trying, even when everything seemed impossible. So she kept searching, and she kept preparing. The Drek Syndicate grew bolder during those 3 years. They attacked Korin trade ships and raided border colonies. They stole resources and killed civilians and laughed at the Empire's weak responses. Emperor Korin IX preferred diplomacy. He sent envoys and negotiators. He offered compromises and treaties. But the Syndicate only saw this as weakness. They took more and more, knowing that the Empire would not fight back. Vela watched and waited. She built alliances with young officers who were tired of the Emperor's caution. She earned their respect through her training and her dedication. Slowly, quietly, she created her own network of loyal soldiers. And then, one day, everything changed. A spy returned from Syndicate space with a data chip. On that chip was footage from a labor camp on Drek Prime, the Syndicate's home world. Vela watched the footage alone in her chambers. Her hands shook as she held the display screen. The camp was a nightmare. Thousands of prisoners worked in deep mines, digging for rare minerals that powered Syndicate weapons. They were thin and broken, their bodies covered in wounds and scars. And there, in the corner of one frame, was a human. He was barely recognizable. His hair had turned gray at the temples. One eye was clouded white from an old injury. His skin was marked with burns and cuts that had never properly healed. But Vela knew him immediately. She would know him anywhere. Tejo was alive. She watched that moment of footage 100 times, 1,000 times. She memorized every detail of his face, every scar, every sign that 3 years of hell had not destroyed him. He was still surviving, just as he had told her to do. Now it was her turn to save him. Vela went to her father's throne room the next morning. The court was assembled. Hundreds of nobles and officials gathered to discuss the business of empire. She walked through them without acknowledging anyone, her boots clicking on the marble floor. "Father," she said, stopping before the throne. "I request command of the Third Fleet." The court fell silent. The Third Fleet was one of the largest military forces in the Empire. No one had expected the princess to ask for such power. "For what purpose?" the Emperor asked. "I will lead an assault on Drek Prime. I will destroy the Syndicate's mining operations and cripple their economy. I will show the galaxy that the Koran Empire is not weak." Whispers spread through the court. An assault on Drek Prime. It was bold. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of action the young officers had been demanding for years. "This is foolish," one of the Emperor's advisors said. "Drek Prime is heavily defended. We could lose half the fleet." "We are losing our empire anyway," Vela replied. "Every day that we do nothing, the Syndicate grows stronger. Every day that we hide behind diplomacy, more of our people die. How many more must we sacrifice before we fight back?" The young officers in the crowd nodded. Some even dared to speak words of agreement. The Emperor studied his daughter. His violet eyes, so similar to hers, revealed nothing. "This is about the human," he said quietly. Vela did not deny it. "Yes, you would risk thousands of Koran lives for one alien. I would risk my own life for one friend." Vela's voice did not waver. "But that is not what this is about. The assault will hurt the Syndicate. It will save Koran lives in the long run. The human is simply one more reason to do what must be done. Our enemies will see this as aggression. Our enemies already see us as prey. Perhaps it is time to show them that we are predators." The court was completely silent now. Everyone watched the Emperor, waiting for his response. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "You will have your fleet," he said. "But know this, daughter. If you fail, you will answer for it. And I will not send anyone to rescue you this time." Vela bowed. "I do not plan to fail." She turned and walked out of the throne room. Behind her, the whispers began again, louder now, excited and afraid. The princess was going to war. In her chambers that night, Vela sat alone with the footage of Tejo. She touched the screen gently, tracing the outline of his scarred face. "Hold on," she whispered. "I am coming. I will not leave you behind again. I promise." The preparations began the next morning. Ships were gathered. Weapons were loaded. Soldiers were briefed. The Third Fleet was 100 warships strong, crewed by 50,000 men and women who had never seen real combat. Vela trained them herself. She pushed them harder than any commander before. Some complained. Some tried to quit, but most of them stayed, inspired by the princess who fought alongside them, who sweated and bled, and never asked them to do anything she would not do herself. 3 months later, the fleet was ready. On the day of departure, Vela stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Remembrance. It was a name she had chosen herself, a name that meant something only to her. "Set course for Drek Prime," she commanded. Full speed. The stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped to faster than light speed. In her pocket, Vela carried a small piece of torn cloth. It was the bandage that Tejo had used to clean her wounds on the first night they met. She had kept it all these years, a reminder of the promise she had made. She touched it now, feeling its rough fabric against her fingers. "I am coming," she said again. Too quiet for anyone to hear. "Just survive a little longer. I am coming." The Syndicate did not expect them to come. Drek Prime was supposed to be untouchable. It sat at the heart of Syndicate space, protected by asteroid fields, weapon platforms, and 3 defensive fleets. No enemy had ever dared to attack it. No enemy had ever been foolish enough to try. But Princess Vela was not just foolish. She was determined. And there was no force in the galaxy more dangerous than a woman keeping a promise. The Third Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel like a storm appearing from clear sky. 100 Koran warships, their hulls painted silver and gold, their weapons already charging. "All ships," Vela commanded from the bridge of the Remembrance. "Begin attack formation. Target the defensive platforms first. Clear a path to the planet." The battle began. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness of space. Ships exploded in silent balls of fire. The Syndicate defenders scrambled to respond, their formations broken by the surprise attack. For the first 3 hours, everything went according to plan. The Corran fleet destroyed the outer defensive platforms and pushed through the asteroid field. They were faster and better trained than the enemy expected. Then the Syndicate reinforcements arrived. 200 more ships appeared from the far side of the planet. They were not pretty ships like the Corran fleet. They were ugly and brutal, covered in spikes and scars from 100 battles. They had been fighting and killing for years, and they were very, very angry. "Admiral," Vela's second-in-command reported, his face pale. "We are outnumbered 2-1. Perhaps we should withdraw and—" "No." Vela's voice was like ice. "We came here to win. We will not leave until we do." "Trime. But Your Highness, the losses—" "I know the losses." Vela turned to face him. Her violet eyes burned with something beyond determination. "I know that people will die today. I know that I am asking them to sacrifice everything. But I also know what happens if we fail. I know what happens to the prisoners in those mines. I know what happens to every world the Syndicate conquers next." She looked out at the battle raging beyond the window. Ships burned and died. Brave soldiers were swallowed by the void. "We fight," she said. "We fight until we win, or until there is nothing left. Those are the only options." The battle continued. Hour after hour, the two fleets tore each other apart. The Corran ships were better equipped, but the Syndicate ships were more numerous. For every enemy ship that fell, a Corran ship fell with it. By the 6th hour, Vela had lost 30 ships. By the 8th hour, she had lost 40. Her admirals begged her to retreat. Her officers sent desperate messages urging her to save what remained of the fleet. She ignored them all. "Focus fire on their command ship," she ordered. "If we kill their leader, the rest will scatter." The Remembrance led the charge. It flew straight into the heart of the enemy formation, its weapons blazing, its shields failing under the constant assault. Other Corran ships followed, drawn by their princess's courage. The Syndicate command ship was massive, 3 times the size of the Remembrance. Its weapons covered every surface, and its shields seemed unbreakable. But nothing was truly unbreakable. Vela studied the enemy ship on her tactical display. She saw its weak points, the small gaps in its armor where the shield generators connected to the hull. "Target coordinates 772, she said. The same numbers as the frequency Tejo had given her. A small coincidence. Or perhaps not a coincidence at all. Concentrate all fire on that location. Everything we have." 20 Corran ships fired as one. Their combined weapons hit the exact same spot, overwhelming the shields for just a moment. It was enough. The plasma bolts punched through the hull. They hit something important inside, something that exploded in a chain reaction that spread through the entire ship. The Syndicate command ship died in a ball of white fire. For a moment, everything stopped. The enemy ships hesitated, confused, their coordination broken without their leader. "Now," Vela shouted, "all ships, push forward, attack." The Corran fleet surged ahead. The Syndicate defenders, already shaken, began to break apart. Some tried to flee. Others fought on but without purpose. By the 11th hour, the battle was over. The Syndicate defense fleet was destroyed or scattered. The path to Drek Prime was open. Vela did not celebrate. She did not rest. There was still work to do. "Prepare landing parties," she commanded. "I want every shuttle loaded with soldiers. We are going down to the surface." "The surface, Your Highness?" Her second-in-command looked surprised. "Should we not simply bomb the mining facilities from orbit?" "The prisoners," Vela said. "There are thousands of prisoners in those mines. We are not here just to destroy. We are here to rescue." She led the ground assault herself. The shuttles landed near the largest mining complex on Drek Prime. Syndicate guards rushed to defend it, but they were no match for Corran soldiers who had just won an impossible space battle. The defenders fell quickly. Vela fought with a plasma rifle in her hands and a blade at her hip. She had trained for 3 years for this moment. Every skill, every hour of practice, had led her here. The mining complex was a maze of tunnels and cells and processing facilities. Prisoners were everywhere. Thin and broken creatures from a dozen different species. Vela's soldiers freed them as they advanced, guiding them toward the shuttles. But Vela was looking for one prisoner in particular. "Cell Block 7, she shouted to her soldiers. "Where is it?" A rescued prisoner pointed down a dark corridor. "That way. The deep cells. They keep the most dangerous prisoners there." Dangerous. Tejo was not dangerous. He was a medic, a healer, a man who helped people. But perhaps, after 3 years of torture, even a gentle man could become something dangerous. Vela ran. The corridor was dark and filled with smoke from the battle. She could hear screaming in the distance, the sounds of guards trying to flee and prisoners trying to survive. She found Cell Block 7. The doors were thick metal, designed to contain the strongest creatures in the galaxy. But her soldiers had brought cutting tools for exactly this purpose. "Open them all," she commanded. One by one, the cell doors fell. Vela walked through them slowly, her heart pounding, her breath catching in her throat. Each cell held a different prisoner. Aliens of species she had never seen before, but none of them were the ones she sought. Then she reached the last cell. The door crashed open. Inside, pressed against the far wall, was a human man. He was thin, so thin that his bones showed through his skin. His hair was gray now, and one of his eyes was clouded white and blind. Scars covered his body, marks of years of pain and suffering. But when he looked up, when he saw the silver-skinned woman standing in the doorway with smoke and fire behind her, his lips curled into a weak smile. "Took you long enough, Princess." Vela dropped her rifle. She crossed the cell in 3 steps and fell to her knees before him. Tears streamed down her face, silver drops that fell to the floor like rain. "I came back," she whispered. "I came back for you." Tejo reached out with a trembling hand and touched her cheek. His fingers were still warm. After everything, after all the cold and darkness and pain, they were still warm. "I know," he said. "I never doubted it." That was a lie. They both knew it was a lie. 3 years was a long time to keep faith. 3 years of torture and hopelessness and silence. But it was the right lie. The kind lie. The lie that said, "I forgive you for taking so long." The lie that said, "I am glad you came at all." Vela helped him to his feet. He leaned against her, too weak to stand alone. "Can you walk?" she asked. "I can try," he said. "I have been trying for 3 years. A little longer will not kill me." Together, they walked out of Cell Block 7. Around them, the battle continued. But Vela did not care. She had found what she came for. She had kept her promise. The journey home took 2 weeks. Vela spent most of that time at Tejo's bedside in the medical bay. The doctor said he would live, but recovery would take months. His body had been broken in ways that could not be easily fixed. His spirit, however, remained unbroken. "You burned a path through an empire for me," Tejo said one evening, his voice still weak. "You destroyed an entire enemy fleet. You risked everything." "I made a promise," Vela said simply. "I do not break my promises." Most people would have forgotten by now. Most people would have moved on. "I am not most people." Tejo smiled. It was the same tired, genuine smile he had given her in the prison cell all those years ago. Some things, it seemed, did not change. When the fleet arrived at the Corin homeworld, the welcome was massive. Thousands of ships filled the sky in celebration. Millions of people lined the streets of the capital city, cheering for the princess who had done what no one else could. Vela was a hero. But she did not feel like one. "They do not know why I really did it," she said to Tejo as they watched the celebrations from a window in the palace. "They think I am a great warrior. They think I wanted glory. Does it matter what they think? It matters to me." Vela turned to face him. "I want them to know the truth. I want them to understand." "Understand what?" "That I did not do this for the empire. I did not do this for power or politics or victory." She took his hand in hers. I did it for you. Because you showed me kindness when I had nothing. Because you taught me that some things are more important than mathematics." Teho was quiet for a long moment. Then he squeezed her hand gently. "Then tell them," he said. 1 month later, Vela summoned the entire imperial court to the throne room. Nobles and officers and officials filled the vast chamber, their voices buzzing with curiosity. Why had the princess called them here? What announcement was she going to make? Emperor Korin IX sat on his throne, watching everything with cold, calculating eyes. He had not spoken to his daughter since her return. He did not know what she was planning. The doors opened. Vela walked in, dressed not in royal robes but in simple military clothes. Behind her, supported by 2 guards, walked Teho. The court fell silent. An alien in the throne room. A human standing before the emperor. This was unprecedented. Vela climbed the steps to the royal platform. She did not sit in her usual place beside her father. Instead, she stood in front of the throne, facing the assembled court. 3 years ago, she began, I was captured by the Drek Syndicate. I was beaten and humiliated and abandoned by my own empire. My ransom was refused. My rescue was deemed too costly. She paused. The silence in the throne room was absolute. In that prison, I met a human named Teho. He was weak by galactic standards. He had no special powers, no great strength, no political value. By every measure our empire uses, he was worthless. Some nobles shifted uncomfortably. This was not the kind of speech they expected from a princess, but that worthless human saved my life. He healed my wounds. He gave me hope when I had none. And when we escaped, he sacrificed his freedom so that I could go free. Vela descended from the platform and walked toward Teho. The crowd parted to let her pass. For 3 years, I trained and planned and waited. For 3 years, I remembered the promise I made to a dying man in a cell. And when I finally had the power to do something about it, I burned a path through an enemy empire to keep my word. She stopped in front of Teho. The human stood as straight as his broken body would allow, meeting her gaze with those dark, warm eyes. "Human," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "I have a question for you." The court leaned forward. What was happening? In that cell, when they separated us, when I left you behind? Her voice wavered for just a moment before steadying. "Did you forsake me?" The nobles whispered in confusion. What kind of question was this? The human had been abandoned, not the princess. Why was she asking if he had forsaken her? But Teho understood. He had always understood her better than anyone. "No," he said simply. "I never stopped believing you would come back. Even when years passed? Even when hope seemed foolish? Especially then," his tired smile returned. "You made a promise, Vela. And humans understand something about promises. We understand that sometimes keeping them is the only thing that matters." Vela turned to face the court. "This is what humanity taught me," she declared. "Not strategy, not warfare, but that promises matter. That loyalty is not something you calculate. That the worth of a person is not measured in power or politics." She looked at her father on the throne. "For too long, we have called other species lesser. For too long, we have measured value in cold numbers. We abandoned our own princess because the cost was too high. We let good people suffer because saving them was inconvenient." Her voice rose. "But a human, a single worthless human, showed me more loyalty than my entire empire. He bled for me when my guards had surrendered. He believed in me when I had every reason to be forgotten." She walked back up to the platform. But she did not stop at her father's throne. She kept walking until she stood at the very center, where all eyes could see her. "I am Vela, heir to the Korin throne. And I am telling you now that things will change. When I rule, we will not abandon our people. We will not calculate the value of lives. We will keep our promises, no matter the cost, because that is what honor demands." The young officers in the crowd began to cheer. Others joined them. Soon, the entire throne room was filled with applause. Emperor Korin IX said nothing. But something changed in his eyes as he watched his daughter. Perhaps it was respect. Perhaps it was fear. Perhaps it was both. When the noise finally died down, Vela extended her hand to Tejo. "You asked me once why you helped me," she said. "You told me it did not need to be complicated. Is it complicated now?" Tejo looked around the throne room. Hundreds of alien faces stared at him with shock, curiosity, and something that might have been respect. He was a human in the heart of an alien empire, standing beside the woman who would one day be empress. "Yes," he admitted, "this is very complicated indeed." Vela laughed. It was a bright, genuine sound that the court had never heard from their serious princess. "Then stay," she said. "Stay, and we will figure out the complications together." Tejo took her hand. His grip was weak from years of suffering, but his fingers were still warm. "Together," he agreed. The court watched in amazement as the princess of the Korin Empire walked hand in hand with a human toward the door. They were an impossible pair, a silver-skinned royal and a scarred alien. Bound by something stronger than politics or power, they were bound by a promise. And in the end, that was enough. Later that night, standing on a balcony overlooking the glittering capital city, Tejo asked the question that had been on his mind since the rescue. "Why did you ask if I had forsaken you? I was the one who was left behind." Vela was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke softly. "Because I spent 3 years wondering if you hated me, if you thought I had abandoned you, if you had given up on me." She looked at him with those violet eyes. "I needed to know that you still believed, that I had not broken you." "You did not break me," Tejo said. "The syndicate tried for 3 years. But every time they hurt me, I thought of you. I thought of the promise you made. And I knew that you would come." "How could you know?" "Because I know you." He smiled. "You are stubborn and proud, and you refuse to let anyone tell you what you cannot do. If you say you will do something, you do it, even if it means burning through an entire empire." Vela laughed again. Then she leaned her head against his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For teaching me how to be human." Tejo put his arm around her. They stood together as the stars came out. Two survivors from different worlds, bound by a bond that neither empire nor time could break. The galaxy would tell stories about them for generations. The princess and the human. The war that changed everything. The promise that could not be broken. But for now, they were simply two people who had found each other in the darkness, and that was the most human thing of all.